Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Today, my guest is Peggy Sealfon. She's a personal development coach, author, motivational speaker, and foremost expert on stress and anxiety. Her integrated life personal coaching system is a customized, fast-track approach to awaken personal balance, ignite the inner source of empowerment, and supercharge your life. I want to welcome to the Susan Brender Show, Peggy Sealfon.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. I'm excited to share this conversation.
You know, I'm excited too, Peggy, and the reason is that stress and anxiety are probably, maybe what would you say, 70% of the population experience it at some time?
Really 100% at one time or another, because stress is really part of everyday life. We all have it. We all experience it. When it becomes a problem is when it becomes chronic, and we're not mindful about it. We don't pay attention, and that's when a lot of really destructive and harmful things can happen.
Now, give us an idea of what you mean by destructive.
Well, look at everyday stress, right? We all have it. We all have to prepare for activities. We deal with traffic. We deal with paying bills. These are all sort of normal stresses that are part of our humanness, and it's part of our vulnerability. But what happens when someone has chronic stress or anxiety, and there's over 40 million people in the U.S. alone that suffer anxiety, they start developing things that actually interfere with their ability to cope with everyday life. So they develop irrational fears, exaggerated worries. They're depressed. They get hopeless. And so the patterns begin. They overeat. They undereat. They have recurring nightmares. They can't sleep. They end up being addicted to foods or alcohol or drugs. So it becomes extremely detrimental, obviously, for their well-being. But on the other side of it, it also directly affects their health, because when you are emotionally in upheaval and stressed and out of balance, you actually develop imbalances in the body that can cause pains, aches, headaches, digestion issues, and can lead to things that are more serious, like cancer and heart disease. And so it's very important to really pay attention to the signs and know that there are things you can do to resolve it.
Okay, now, Peggy, here's the thing. You're certified in life-changing modalities from ancient yogic techniques, mindfulness, and spirituality. Now, is that a science that this uses? Is it tested? Do we know what causes stress and anxiety and how we can work to make it better?
Actually, I have training beyond even just the ancient yogic techniques. I'm now trained not only as a life coach, but in modalities including functional medicine, nutrition, neuro-linguistic programming. So all of these sciences come from ancient wisdom, come from modern psychology, and are now integrated into the neurosciences, giving us an understanding of how our bodies and minds work. And what the ancient seers knew and understood is that when the mind and body function in an integrated state of being, we really enter into optimal states of being. So mind and body function at such a higher level that we can actually reach our highest potential. And I know you're very involved in the arts, Susan, and a lot of artists and performers, they feel that integrated feeling when they're in their performance. Mm-hmm. It's almost blissful, and it's almost an out-of-body experience. They're just so engaged in the moment because they've practiced that moment over and over again, and it's just sort of released. When they step off the stage or out of that role, they suddenly have fears, anxieties, and all sorts of issues from everyday life because they don't understand how they consciously got into that place of integration. Mm-hmm. And that's what I teach people, is really how to bring that into balance. And so all of the different trainings that I've had bring it together in very different ways because different people resonate differently with different techniques. And a lot of it boils down to belief systems. And to more directly answer your question, yes, there's a tremendous amount of science behind it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said a belief system. Now, that sounds a little bit, how shall I say, a little out there. Now, because when you mention something like a belief system, what does that mean?
It's interesting because we've been conditioned and indoctrinated to certain ways of thinking. And so in our culture, we accept Western medicine as the cure-all, the panacea. You take a pill, you cut off an arm, you change and eliminate the symptom. And what that is really a belief. You know, we once believed the world was flat, and now we look at that and it's hilarious. We know so much more than we ever thought we could possibly be open to experiencing. So the point is that when we have these belief systems, they limit our understanding of our human capacity. And we are now learning, by going back to the ancient seers and integrating it with modern functional medicine, which I just recently finished training in, we're learning the integration of Western medicine with that Eastern philosophical understanding, and we're also understanding that we are such a stressed-out culture that you can't have your body functioning in a proactive way when you're under such tension. I mean, for a minute, just take both your hands and just make them into fists and just squeeze that. And keep squeezing your fist and hold on to it and hold on to it. So now you're really experiencing kind of an isometric exercise, and you're stopping the flow of energy as all your muscles are activated, all the fibers are firing in your muscles. And if you keep holding it, it's going to start to burn, and it's going to start to feel painful. Now let go of it. You can feel what relaxation feels like. You can feel the release and the flow of energy. So when we're stressed, we stop that flow. And it's okay for short bursts. That's what it was meant for our survival, fight or flight. But when you have it for extended periods, the body breaks down and the mind doesn't function very well.
Now, let's talk about your book. This is a best-selling book, Escape from Anxiety, Supercharge Your Life with Powerful Strategies from A to Z. Now, tell us more about your book and why you wrote it. How has it changed the attitude of a lot of people, including you?
Thank you. It's been very exciting to be able to put this together because what I've done is really bring all of my different trainings together between the two covers of the book. And so what it provides for people are over 100 simple ways to dismantle fears, stress, anxiety, and really change it forever. And so it's a compilation of these bite-sized solutions. I call them interrupters because what happens in our lives is we actually get into patterns of stress and fear. Something triggers us, and then we repeat that pattern over and over and over again. And it gets deeper and deeper in our neural pathways, and so we keep defaulting to that. So it takes a mindfulness, being really aware of it, and these interrupters. And so my interrupters in the book is divided into the A to Z's. So you can literally open up any letter of the alphabet and find 3-4 different solutions that you could apply right in that moment. And then the second part of the book really provides a more sustainable approach so that this is something you can do for the rest of your life and supercharge your life. And part of my reason for writing it is my discoveries of all of these different methodologies and realizing that they all work and people need to have more access to them because people really are seeking solutions and they don't know where to turn, and different solutions resolve issues differently for different people. So I felt that it really needed to have this broad range of opportunities so that there would be many things within the book that would resonate with people. And part of it, too, was because I suffered for so long. I went through decades of fighting the fears and the anxieties and having super highs and crushing lows. And I thought that was just my pattern. That was my life. I was stuck with it and had to deal with it. And then I began studying these different methodologies, and I realized we are not stuck. And that's the main goal, really, or the main intention of my book, is really to give people hope and a toolbox of skills that they can use today, immediately.
I know that this is a very personal question, but you said you suffered from anxiety and stress, and I suppose depression was part of it. Now, tell our audience, because you see, there's been leaps and bounds in what's being done now to help to get rid of depression. And I want our audience to know, is it true? Can it be done? Is it really something that we've had advanced medicine techniques and all kinds of things to really help people get through it?
Absolutely. And so much of it is really giving people awareness of better choices that they can make for their lives. There are a lot of instances and studies lately that are showing that especially middle-aged women or women whose children are grown and leaving the empty nest syndrome are suffering bouts of depression, and the knee-jerk reaction is to give medication to manage that. But that's just a symptom, and if you really give people better life choices and better nutrition, an understanding that sleep is really critical and you really need to have a certain amount of sleep, and be able to make better choices throughout your day in terms of what tasks you choose, what people you put around yourself. If you're surrounding yourself with toxic people, it's going to be depressing.
Yes.
And it all filters in. It all makes a difference.
Well, our world is now in a flux. I mean, that's the way I would describe it. Everything is happening all over the world, and you can't avoid stress and anxiety. You can't avoid feeling depressed, because look what's happening in the world around us. Now, knowing that, do you still think that with all this new stuff, new medicines, new techniques, old techniques, do you still think that it's possible to get through this hard and difficult time?
I know it is. I just finished working with a CEO of a nonprofit company who every other day was racing to the hospital thinking she was having a heart attack. And I began to work with her, and we discovered that she had just relocated. It was a new job. She was working with people who were not very supportive. It was extremely stressful. Well, she could have gone on and continued to have these panic attacks and feel like crap, or she could begin to address it and make changes in her lifestyle and better choices that supported all who she is. And that's a big part of this, is really where you put your focus, that's where your energy flows. And so she was focusing on all the things that weren't working in her company, in her own life. And so all her energy was being depleted, and she was getting more and more anxious. Instead of stepping back and really moving into her power center and really being in that place of inner strength where she really connected to who she is, and now she's thriving. She's doing absolutely phenomenal. And so, yes, you can absolutely change in major ways. However, it does take a commitment and a willingness to do it.
So you say a commitment and a willingness to do it. Now, explain that further.
Again, I feel in the culture we live in, people want instant gratification. Oh, give me a pill and I'll feel better. And to me, giving someone a pill for them to feel better is kind of like having your oil light in your car go on, and to fix it, you cut the line to the oil light. You haven't fixed the problem. So it does take a commitment to face your fears, face yourself, and transcend them. And that's part of what I do with my integrated life personal coaching system, is really guide people into a personal plan they develop for themselves, fits into their lifestyle, that they can truly follow. But in order to really implement it, they must commit to at least a month of this program, because it takes a minimum of 21 to 90 days to form new habits. And what often happens, I so often used to do lectures to groups of people, and people would leave on a high, feeling so great after I gave them some skills to try. And then they would walk out into traffic, or someone would say something nasty to them, and all of the old angers and frustrations would just surge right back. Well, it takes training. It takes interrupting those old habit patterns.
Now, you mentioned nutrition as one of the ways in which you can help to get people a little bit more or less get rid of their stress and anxiety. Now, give our audience a little bit of information about what you mean by good nutrition. How do you define good nutrition?
I think innately we all know what that is, but one of my biggest bugaboos is sugar. And sugar can actually contribute to a feeling of nervousness, tension, and make people actually feel like they're suffering bouts of anxiety. And sugar has been shown to be 8 times more addictive than cocaine. So once you start having lots of sugar in your life, you keep craving it. You develop these cravings, which actually coat your taste buds. And I'm telling you this from personal experience, because my life partner, Patrick, loves to do all of our cooking, and he was using things that were laced with high fructose corn syrup and all sorts of artificial substances that were adding sweetness, but it was done either artificially or using different forms of sugar. And I got addicted. And I thought, what is wrong with me? I was going back to my highs and lows, and I thought, this is bizarre. And that's when I really started studying nutrition and realized it's because I'm addicted, and I need to stop the addiction. And you can literally change that habit within a week.
Did you say within a week?
Within a week, you can change that habit. When you eliminate sugar really vigilantly, looking at labels and really making sure that you are not having any sugar, no sweeteners, you can really change that addiction to it. And what's really amazing to me was things start tasting so much better. Fruits were sweeter than I could ever remember fruits tasting. And the other side of it is I am very conscientious about staying with organic, non-toxic, non-pesticide types of fruits and vegetables, and being aware of the kinds of food that I'm putting in my body, because food is medicine.
That's an interesting use of the word medicine. So you think that different kinds of very healthy food is a kind of medicine?
Well, I feel that if we want to have our bodies be like an old broken down jalopy, then eat fast food, feed it crap, and that's fine. But if we want to be a really supercharged race car, we need to give it the proper fuel, and food is our fuel. So if we compromise what we're putting in our mouths, we're compromising how we feel, how we function, how we perform, how productive we are. It affects everything.
Now, give our audience an idea of what a perfect day in the Peggy Sealfon world would be.
A perfect day. Well, if I had my druthers, a perfect day would probably be surrounded by friends, playing tennis or golf, walking on the beach where I live by the Gulf of Mexico, and that would be very pleasurable and very relaxing.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful, and I'm sure all our audience would love to do that. But now we live in a very fast-paced society. Everything is surrounded by this desire for money, power, and that contributes, as far as I'm concerned, to a lot of the anxiety and stress that we're feeling, because if we don't make it, and if we don't accomplish, and if we don't get, thousands and in some cases millions, and in fact I just watched something called The Billion, and this is all about how our young people in their 20s and their 30s and maybe even in their 40s, they work 20 hours a day. Now, what do you say to them?
It's interesting because it's one of the things that I've kind of been an advocate for, and that is creating more work-life balance. And you can work 20 hours a week if you balance your life properly and really invest in focusing in what you love to do as far as your work and being able to balance it with the things in your personal life. And I actually wrote a chapter in The Change, which is Insights into Self-Empowerment. It's one of the fastest-growing personal development book series in the world, and it's co-authored with Jim Britt, who was actually Tony Robbins' first mentor. And what I wrote about was an integrated life is the way to authentic success, because, Susan, you are so right. People are racing after making more money, and when you look at the studies, they found that if you have a 30% increase in salary, let's say, it does not deliver 30% more happiness.
Right.
And I actually worked with a multi-millionaire. He had worked so hard his whole life to have all of this money, and instead of basking in the rewards of this, he was so crippled with anxiety in trying not to lose it all, and in managing his new homes, his car collection, and watching over all his investments. And what happened was he really wasn't spending quality time with his wife or his daughters, and he got physically sick.
Yeah.
So just chasing that is a false illusion of what's going to bring you contentment, happiness, and fulfillment in your life.
I'm glad that you mentioned the word content. Now, content is a kind of, it's a word that you can make fit anything. Of course I'm content because I have a good job. I'm content because my family is all around me and everybody's alive. What is the word content, and how do you define that for you?
For myself, contentment is really being present in the moment. Too often in my past, I've always been planning and strategizing about what's happening next or what did I do wrong before, instead of really being present and connected to what is, and to really be in the reality. And for me, being in the reality delivers contentment, because at the end of the day, I feel like I have a phenomenal life. Is everything perfect? Of course not. Am I working on a lot of things, personally and professionally? Of course I am. But it's being able to accept what is as is and to revel in it, to be in joy. And to me, that's what contentment should be for all of us. We spend too much time deferring happiness to some future point. When I get that exotic car, or when I meet that perfect person to fulfill my life, instead of being where we are right now and being on that journey. I think that's contentment.
Now, there's also the word that sort of is all over the place. It's called mindfulness. Everybody that I've spoken to talks about mindfulness. Define that for our audience as well.
Mindfulness to me is exceedingly important, and it really is about being aware. We so often are doing a task, driving, for instance, and what are we doing? We're texting, we're changing the radio station. We're really not being mindful about what's in our surroundings, what we're experiencing, being focused on the task at hand. We're doing a million other tasks. And mindfulness is a way of bringing yourself into that present moment, which to me helps deliver contentment. Because when you're really fully in that moment and you realize all the positive, wonderful things in your life in that moment, instead of focusing on negative things, which is what we tend to default to, it really fills your life. And Thich Nhat Hanh had a wonderful quote where he said, mindfulness is a medicine for our suffering.
That's really very profound. Now, there are many different yogis and people who are they're really all around us, and they're giving their thoughts, their ideas to settle down, to have a quiet mind. And that's another thing I want to know. When people say, have a quiet mind, how do you do it? Because the tapes are always playing. The mind just keeps on going and going. So tell us a little bit about this whole idea that you have to quiet down your mind. How do you do that?
Absolutely. It is really a key to give yourself, I call it a time out, or even a productivity pause. And I actually have a free audio that your listeners can go to and download and use it. It's called 3minutes2destress.com. And it's the numeral 3minutes2destress.com. And what it is really allowing you to take 3 minutes. Each of us can devote 3 minutes to just sitting still, doing some breathing, and just allowing yourself to just be, where you're shifting from thinking and doing to just feeling and being. And a lot of times what I guide people to do is to play with the idea of dropping into the gaps between your thoughts. So the thoughts are there, they're buzzing around, they're all over the place, and it's hard to stop them, and I'm not suggesting that you do stop them. What I'm suggesting you do is play with them. And just let them float in, let them float out, and see if you can play with that idea of dropping between them. And that just gives your brain a time out. And there have been so many studies now that have shown how you literally can expand brain function by doing this a number of times throughout the day. So I encourage people to download my audio and use it.
Mm-hmm. So we just have a couple of moments left to speak about the things that you're doing and your book. So if people want to find your book, first of all, give them the name and tell them how they do that.
Thank you. It is Escape from Anxiety, Supercharge Your Life with Powerful Strategies from A to Z. It is available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, and in some of the Barnes & Noble stores. It's also available online at escapefromanxiety.com. So that's an easy way to access it.
And if they want to talk to you, Peggy, and get your personal development as a personal development coach, how do they find you?
Thank you. One of the ways would be through integratedlifeplan.com. Integratedlifeplan.com, and they can actually see what this personal coaching system looks like, see if it resonates with them. And that will also give them access to my website, which is peggysealfon.com. I have a lot of free material on there, videos, articles, helping to deal with stress, anxiety, fears. So I really encourage people to use it. My mission is to share this with as many people as I can help and change, and I'm encouraging anyone who feels frightened about life or feeling like they're really not on their purpose to spend some time on the website or contact me and let me help you.
Well, my guest today has been Peggy Sealfon. She's a personal development coach, author, motivational speaker, and an expert on stress and anxiety. Thank you, Peggy Sealfon, for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.